Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brittany Blake. I am LGA's Director of Marketing, and I want to thank everybody that's on the webinar that's consistently supported these important conversations. If this is your first Fireside Chat experience with LGA, welcome. It's hard to believe that this is our 17th Fireside Chat. We began these chats as a way to rally our clients and colleagues around important issues facing our community and discuss how we, as both designers and community members, can work together and be the tide that raises all ships. So before we kick off, I would like to go over some logistics. We have a chat feature, and we encourage you to ask questions and initiate dialogue throughout the hour. We will have time at the end to answer questions. However, I will monitor the chat throughout and perhaps break in to the conversation if a question makes sense. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available on our website usually within the week. And if you are registered, you will receive a copy or a link to the webinar as well. My colleague and one of LGA's principals, Jason Jajorian, will be facilitating this conversation with our esteemed panelists. So without further ado, we will kick this thing off. Tonight's Fireside Chat is entitled Modern Trailblazer, the Legacy and Impact of Paul Revere Williams. One of our panelists, Gail, actually said on our pre-call that Paul Revere Williams is having a moment right now. And it's better late than never. But we're sorry that he isn't alive to see all this recognition. And it's up to us to keep this momentum rolling. So if you've been under a rock and haven't heard about Paul Revere Williams, especially the last month, 2 months, Paul Williams is an architect who played a significant role in shaping the landscape of Southern California, as well as some notable work in our own backyard here. And that all took place, mid 20th century. So at LGA, it's one of the cornerstones of our firm to listen to our clients and to care about the function of a space and then layer on the aesthetics after that. And Williams was forced to kind of leave his ego at the door due to the social injustices he experienced at the time he practiced architecture. But he was able to build his career and his legacy based on interpreting and delivering on his clients' needs. And so we at LGA and we in the industry can learn so many things from Williams' approach to design. So with that, we invite you to engage with us as we celebrate the life and work of Paul Revere Williams tonight. And I will pass it on to Jason to introduce our panelists.
Yes, thank you, Brittany. I'm really excited about today and very thankful for our panelists who are joining us. I'd like to do some formal introductions and we're going to jump right into content right after. Gail, I'm going to start with you. Gail Gennard is Vice President of the City of Los Angeles Cultural Heritage Commission. She's also a former member of the Board of Advisors of the USC School of Architecture. She is a daughter of Robert Gennard, FA, who's a fellow AIA member and also a protege of Paul Williams. Gail heads the firm that our late father started in Los Angeles in 1957, making it one of the oldest African-American owned architectural practices in the Western United States. Gail, welcome to our Fireside Chat.
Thank you, Jason. Pleasure to be here.
Great. We're lucky to have you here. So next we'll move on. I'll move on to Carmen Beals. Carmen serves as an associate curator and outreach director with the Nevada Museum of Art. She curates exhibitions with a focus on African-American culture and assists the museum in increasing statewide programming. Her latest exhibition is a statewide exhibit that features the designs of architect Paul Williams through the contemporary lens of Jana Ireland. She holds multiple degrees and studied at the Harvard University Extension School, UCLA Anderson Mansion Executive Program, and Prairie View A&M University. Welcome, Carmen. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Carmen was one of the inspirations for us having this. Reached out to us, I think, well over a year ago, Carmen. So the day is finally here. So
yes, that's correct. And we appreciate you being a community sponsor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Last but not least, we have Melvin Green. Melvin graduated from Louisiana Tech University with a Bachelor of Architecture degree. In 1995, he founded Melvin Green Architects Limited. Mel is a member of the National Association of Minority Architects, National Association of Minority Contractors, Western Regional Minority Supplier Development Council, National Council of Architecture Registration Board, and the American Institute of Architects. Mel has a vast amount of international experience, given the opportunity to see licensure in over 18 countries through APEC. Most recently is awarded the prestigious Trailblazer Award in the Business and Economic Advancement category by the City of Las Vegas. Welcome, Mel. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay. Well, we're gonna start in some questions. I'm gonna hopefully keep it open, keep it loose. As I encourage those who are watching today, ask questions at any time. We'll do our best to get to everything. But let's get started with our first question. So I would like to hear, at least from each of you, who is Paul Williams to you personally, and how would you describe his impact on architecture and design? So let's start, Gail, let's start with you today.
Yeah, so I can say that without any doubt that I would not have had the career I had. I've not had the life I'd had without Paul Williams. So my father was a young man, also born in Los Angeles, like Paul, Revere Williams. And he was in high school in the 1930s. My late father, Robert Kennard, was born in 1920. And he heard about this architect named Paul Williams. And my father didn't even know, it was very unlikely that my father would have met any architects at that time. But he heard about Paul Williams, and just knowing that Paul Williams existed motivated him to pursue his education in architecture. And he ultimately got his degree and became a practicing architect. So I owe a great deal to the work of Paul Revere Williams.
It's great to hear that he was inspiration for your father, which in turn was inspiration to you, Gail. So I think that's probably the lasting legacy that we're celebrating today.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I do too as well, because to me, Paul Williams was a trailblazer. I mean, he was an accomplished architect who was just happened to be African American, because sometimes they say, well, you're African American architect, or you are I wanted everyone to understand that he was an architect that happened to be African American.
Right.
And he broke so many boundaries, and he achieved so much success during his career with facing so many challenges and obstacles. So I too, as a African American architect, have been through that path, and Paul has been my inspiration to persevere.
Yeah, thank you, Mel. Carmen, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, for me, just as they've stated, he has been an inspiration, and his brilliance in the way that he was able to not only achieve so many wonderful accolades, but just continuing on to become a legacy for others. Not only because he, as wonderful as he is, he could have easily just continued a road of luxury, but instead he always placed his ego to the side to ensure that all people from all classes could afford the comfort of a home. And that's what I really love about him.
That's exactly right, Carmen. I find when we find our connection as an architect, when those who can lead in design and architecture, it impacts so many people. The things we do, the places we create a lasting impact. And when we could do it without an ego, do it by listening the way Paul Williams did, we can learn a lot from that and be better architects and better designers for it. So I like to learn a little bit more about his brilliance and the things he was able to do, and maybe we can touch upon those, and also the obstacles, the challenges he faced as we continue to go. So Mel, you mentioned, Paul Williams was a trailblazer. He had to overcome a lot of obstacles of discrimination in his career. He was the first African American architect to enter into AIA. He was also the first fellow of the AIA as a Black architect. And so, Mel, maybe we can start with you. Is what lessons can we learn from his perseverance? You mentioned that word. So what can you dive a little deeper into that topic?
For me, I think it would be his perseverance in terms of his mentality, because a lot of times people give up. So it's a mental game that has to be brought to the forefront, because regardless of any circumstance that he endured, whether it was racism or not being able to get projects, he never gave up. And to me, it's important that we as minority architects have to understand that we have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in our ability, and we have to be resilient, because you have to be able to accept a no and rebound quickly from any setback or adapt to the challenges. So I think that is an essential lesson that we can learn from Paul.
Thank you, Mel. Gail, you have anything to add, at least even from your father's experience?
Yeah, it's really interesting that, architecture is not easy for anybody, of any race, but particularly the generation of Paul Williams, who he was born before the 20th century. But he was such a magnet for people. And I think it's really important to understand what he meant to other students of architecture, Black students of architecture around the country. And he provided employment opportunities to some of them. Some of them came to Los Angeles, and he provided internships for them, people that went on to have wonderful careers in other places like New York, Chicago. J. Max Bond, who was one of the architects of the new Smithsonian Museum of African American History, he came to Los Angeles to work under Paul Williams. And so there's this whole generation that came after him that were inspired by him. And I don't think we can underestimate that, because they didn't just stay in the West, in California, in Los Angeles even. They spread all around the country, and just knowing, like my father knew, that he existed was a huge benefit. So aside from his buildings, he has a wonderful legacy of empowering other African American architects to pursue the profession.
Yeah, Gail, I think this is a good lead into a photo you shared with us. And
Sure.
I wonder if you would mind walking us through this.
Yeah, this is a photo of, you see the gentleman in the center. This is Paul Revere Williams, as in the elder, and the architects around him were those who he had mentored, some he had hired. My father is standing directly behind him with the bow tie. Harold Williams to the left, to our left, the right of Mr. Williams, and other Black architects who, were inspired, who started their own firms because of his example, went on to do amazing work in their own right. This was probably taken in, I'm thinking the way they're dressed, in the 70s, maybe late 70s. Paul Revere Williams sadly died in 1980, I believe. So it was probably not a few years before his death.
It's a great photo, and this is, like you mentioned, towards the end of his career.
Yes.
What I learned, he started in 1923.
Yes.
Carmen, do you have anything to add about the obstacles that you learned, and through the exhibits that you helped curate? Anything you learned about his obstacles during Paul Williams' career?
One thing that I really learned that I really loved about Paul Revere Williams is, just as others have stated, he did face a lot of racial barriers, but what was incredible is how he interacted. So maybe a lot of people already know the story about how he learned how to draw upside down because it was considered taboo to sit next to a person of white descent. But he also used that as a great marketing tool, but to wow and surprise other individuals. Other things that he would do is when people would come into his office and they realized that he was of African American descent, they would look and say, oh, but then he would ask, well, how much are you expecting to pay for this property? They would say 10,000. He was like, oh, well, I really usually don't do that, but let's see what we can do for you. Just those intriguing and wonderful marketing techniques to continue to draw in clientele. That's some of the obstacles that I really loved learning about through curating this exhibition.
Yeah, I think Mel, you might agree with me. Drawing upside down, drawing right side up is hard enough. Like, I mean,
I
just
totally
to hear,
agree with you, Jason.
to hear
Absolutely.
hear that story is absolutely amazing. Yeah, and that's an amazing story. And I think of those obstacles again, I think we'll hopefully find when we explore a little deeper his adaptability in working, how he worked actually was portrayed in architecture he created, and on the different levels of architecture, different styles that he was able to master over his career. I'm going to jump in to another question, and this maybe we can do a little slideshow as part of this. In preparation today, we've asked each of our panelists to share a particular photo or project that they liked of Paul Williams they want to show off. And so maybe Gail, I want to start with you on this, and then maybe you can walk us through the project you think is a good example. So
Yeah, well, I think it's important, as you're getting on the screen here. He was a genius. Paul Revere Williams was just literally a genius, and he was able to design in all kinds of styles. So he did revivalist work, he did modernist work. This is a photograph of another kind of work that he did, and I think it's important to understand a lot of the focus is on his residential work for high-end, wealthier clients. But early on, he also saw the importance of providing housing for everyday people. And this is a picture of the Pueblo del Rio public housing development that was built in 1940. So you can see the design is not revivalist, it's really modernist, contemporary to that time. But he was trying to provide well-designed housing for everyday people that was livable, and people could feel a sense of home in the spaces that he designed. So I think it's really important to understand that in addition to the mansions and the places that we can ooh and ah over that are still so wonderful today to see, but he was also concerned about social issues and how he could improve the lot of others.
That's amazing to be able to, oh, I think I jumped ahead to something we want to talk about, but yeah, he was able to span, you said famous clients, celebrities, Frank Sinatra, Lucille Ball,
Right.
and others. And I guess he was an architect of the stars, but also able to connect with people and community in different ways that affect
Exactly.
more people, and that's amazing.
Who were in great need of housing. There
Yes.
was a great housing shortage at that time, and similar to today.
Right. Yeah, that's still a struggle, is getting people in beds, and the crisis that we're always fighting against.
Yeah.
But
But you can see, just let me add real quickly about this.
Sure.
You can see he added outdoor spaces, playgrounds. They weren't densely built. It was homes for people that couldn't afford a single family home, but wanted to have the feeling of being a single family home and have a pride of space, that they were in their own space. So I appreciate that work.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. While we're with you, Gail, we do have a question that comes in. I think it actually is connected to your next photo. So, Brittany, do you mind asking that question?
Yes, I was going to say, I know this ties in exactly to Gail's photo. So this question says, I read that there are some Paul Revere Williams homes in LA that have been altered or demolished by new home buyers. There are many who believe that his project should be designated as historical sites. And, is there a way that we can contribute to this initiative and protect the historic importance of his work?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that, because as you heard in my introduction, I serve on the city's Cultural Heritage Commission, and we are tasked with designating significant buildings and other features in Los Angeles. We've been successful in many areas in terms of Paul Williams' work. We've designated the residence that he designed for himself and his family, and also the residence that he had to live in. From the 1920s, for 30 years, he lived in a residence. It was a very humble space. So thanks to preservation groups in Los Angeles, the LA Conservancy, they were very instrumental in finding this. But as you see on the screen now, this is an image when we were unsuccessful. This was a building that had been a residence designed by Paul R. Williams that was unfortunately demolished. Sadly, beautiful building that we had tried to save when we were unsuccessful. So I would encourage everyone who's out there who was familiar with buildings that he designed that might be at risk to call that attention to city officials, to preservation groups, and get out in front of them. One of the things that I would encourage people to do, that often they're most at risk when there's a sale, and there's a pending sale. So all the realtors out there, if you're aware of Paul Revere Williams design buildings, whether residences or not, public buildings, commercial buildings, if we can get out ahead of those before they're threatened, it's always a benefit.
That's great. And we did have a fireside chat on preservation last year, and I love how they tie in. This is actually right in the same thread. And we always look for actionable items for people, and what can we do? And hopefully the few preservation experts on the call today can make note of that.
Yeah, so thank you for the question.
Absolutely. Carmen, I want to hear from you about your project, and I'm going to pull that up on the screen right now.
Okay, well, my favorite project is the Luella Garvey House, which is located in Reno, Nevada. Luella Garvey was a single woman who was originally from Pasadena and knew of Paul Revere Williams' work, and she commissioned him in 1934 to build a 16-room classical revival style home with French Regency elements. I love the interior of the facility. You see in the middle picture that it's an L shape, and it has ornamental ironwork around it. And in the right, that's Jonna Ireland taking a photo. And what I love most about it is it features Paul Revere Williams' signature staircase, curvaceous staircase. And we believe that it is the only one throughout the state of Nevada with that is still available for showing. So I love this home, and it's also featured in our exhibition.
Okay, great. I did in our research come across a lot of curvilinear stair elements and the warmth and dynamic stairs that Paul Williams has created. So I encourage our audience to dive a little bit. Get on Google, check out images. There's some great examples of these stairs, and I did not know that this one was in Reno in Nevada, so that's great.
Yes.
So
Yes.
is this one on historic preservation list?
Yes, it is on the historic preservation list, and you can learn more about it by visiting the exhibition if you like.
Right. Fantastic. We're gonna give you a time at the end to talk about your exhibition, Carmen. Okay. So yeah. Mel, I'm gonna move on to you, and
sure.
You want to show your example?
Absolutely. It was the Guardian Angel Cathedral here in Las Vegas. To me, it's a inspiration to the spirit of God. I mean, when I look at this mural, I see heavenly, I see spiritual effects, and the fact that it has the actual windows that are stained glass that emits the light. So there's the play on light, there's the texture of the the mural on the outside. So actually that view there is just so stunning. The way he was able to play with the light and also provide the spiritual part of it. To me, that is what heaven is like, a place that defines the detail of how a contemporary style, how he used the geometric patterns and the stained glass images, just is in awe for me as an architect.
Yeah. And then we have another photo.
Yeah, so to me, that resembles sort of a Gothic revival style with the high windows and the arches, but in a more contemporary view.
Right. So what I find with Paul Williams is, although a lot of his designs are, you see La Concha behind me on the screen, and that's the home of the Neon Museum in Las Vegas. That there's a lot of iconic architecture, but at the same time, there's a humanistic touch to it and a softness to it, and that's what I find really striking, and I really appreciate that dual aspect. That there could be something that it's iconic, something that is beautiful, draws your eye, but at the same time you see the beautiful details like that of the stairwell that Carmen showed earlier. Maybe we can maybe hang, what else do we know about the architecture, Mel? What I learned is about Paul Williams he was at the forefront of modernism, and how philosophy of bringing outdoors in, and pioneer how open floor plans were created. So one of the first architects to really push that envelope. Do you know of any to add to that, or?
Yeah, to me it was more of a contemporary style, like he stated, how you can bring the interior effects of the building along with the exterior effects of the building, and make it at a human scale. And that's what I liked about him, because it was a dramatic biblical features, but yet it also included the emphasis on light, on texture, and tranquility.
Well, thank you for sharing. It's great to see these examples, and yeah, let's keep going. So we have another question. Let's talk about Paul Williams' legacy a little bit and what he's left behind, and you can talk about how you've seen, even yourself or beyond yourself, how has he inspired and influenced the next generation of architects and designers? We touched a little bit about that, but what can we continue to learn, and aspiring architects can continue to learn from Paul Williams' legacy?
Well, I can say, I think, one of his great contributions was his attention to detail, and his sense of, just if you're going to do it, just do it for the highest level you can. You just felt that there was a care and a concern about what he did. Part of that is generational, of course, because when he was studying architecture, the architects designed everything. They designed the cabinetry or casework. They designed all the details that went into his spaces. But he carried that over as the decades went on, and you just get a sense that, like the church that we just saw, that Mel loves, it's just this attention to detail and to do anything to such a high quality. And I think that was his personality was that way. He dressed impeccably. He just conducted himself with such a high level of professionalism. You just felt that he was just a dignified person, and that carried over into his architecture.
I totally agree, because when I look at him, I see a refined, well-educated person, a person of elegance,
Yes.
and to me, he portrayed that in his architecture. Like you stated, in terms of the attention to detail, but also he also worked with the common person too as well, and tried to give them a taste of elegance. So I do agree that that he had, to me, the highly functional and beautiful architecture that served the foundation for so many different styles. So he, to me, wasn't just one style, and he was adaptable.
Yeah. Carmen, do you have anything to add about Paul Williams' legacy and his inspiration to next generation?
Yes, well, not only was he an inspiration as far as his detail to all, whether it was a small 2-bedroom house that you can see in El Reno Apartments in Northern Nevada, but also just the attention and the fact that as he was going through the University of Southern California, he was going to attending night school at 4 other institutions. So that just told you that he wanted to do and deliver his very best, even from a young age. And I thought that was I just admire that about him.
He had a great work ethic. That's what my mom always told me.
Right.
I could outwork the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost that ethic that made him like, there's no way you can question him. He did it. He went through all the obstacles and did it at the highest level. And that's a reason for celebration and honoring Paul Williams.
Absolutely.
Brittany, you have, I know there's a couple questions come in, I think are related to this content, so this line. So let's have it.
Yes. I know you guys, it's like you guys are seeing these questions or something. They're always just perfectly timed. But so Mel, you kind of alluded to his adaptability of style. But this question actually is asking, how do you think he was able to adapt to scale? Because his projects could be, small to very grand. And so, this person, Craig, is saying, as an architect, I find it difficult to change scales. How do you think he was able to be so humble and create such great architecture and adapt to scale like that?
That is an excellent question, and I think it has to also deal with his personality. I mean, I think he knew the situation that he was in, and he understood the discrimination that was abound. And so to me, the way he created it, he went there knowing that he had to woo his client, but also provide the sensitivity of understanding how to deal with that client. And by providing that insight, he was then able to get into make the clients feel very comfortable. And then by that, producing the architecture that included what the client needed, but also putting his style into it as well.
Great. You want to keep going, Brittany, on?
Yes, I was going to say, you guys kind of alluded to, how his identity and how he portrayed himself. But this question is asking, how does his identity and his client's identity play a role in his work?
I'm going to kind of jump right in this because I have a thought about why he was successful. And I think it had a lot to do with the fact that he was in the West. And the West, in Los Angeles, many of his clients were celebrities. And they weren't mired down into the elitist kind of thinking, social circle thinking that was more prevalent in Eastern cities. So, for example, if you think about his clients, who were they? Frank Sinatra, designed homes for Frank Sinatra, Bob Hope. These were people that they didn't inherit their wealth. They were kind of what we'd call nouveau rich. They became into celebrity and wealth in a different time, in the middle of the 20th century. And they might have been more open to somebody like Paul Williams, even though he was, a quote unquote, I'm a Negro architect. He said, I am a Negro. But the clients, Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz, they were not stodgy, elitist clients for the most part. So I think because he was in the West, he had an opportunity that he might not have had he been in a city like New York or Boston or someplace like that. So I think that might have also influenced how he was able to get clients and keep clients, because they referred him to others. It became a network, and so he was able to benefit from that. And plus, he was just a classy man. I mean, if you're an entertainer and Paul Williams walks into your house and he's got this suit and tie and he's just really decked out, you're gonna like, okay, this might work for me.
There's one more question, and from Clay T. White, who's a great oral historian in Las Vegas. I want Clay T to answer this question for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? 'Cause I'm reading it now.
You want
So yes, the question is, I want to know more about his association with Las Vegas businessmen. So talk about his elegance, and yet he could deal with mobsters and common men. So more adaptability, right?
Yeah. Carmen, have you learned anything through your exhibition related to more Las Vegas-based relationships and?
Yes. And hello, Clay T, the phenomenal Clay T. Yes. Well, it goes back, a lot of the base goes back to California. For instance, the Damani family. They knew about Paul Revere Williams because one of the sons attended University of Southern California. So when they came and asked Paul Revere Williams to design the La Concha, that was one of the introductions to Las Vegas businessmen. And another is World War II. During World War II, they actually Paul Revere Williams actually closed down his facility to work as an architect for the Navy. That gave him the introduction, the original introduction to Southern Nevada, to create segregated housing for individuals who were recruited to create magnesium for African-American individuals that were recruited to create magnesium for the war. And with that, with him being there, he being here during that particular time, he was able to work with the quote unquote mobsters, which actually they commissioned him to create the Royal Nevada, which opened for 7 years. And then that story actually leads us to the Guardian Angel Cathedral, because Mo Dalitz was an executive of the Guardian Angel it was an executive of Stardust, which was part of the Royal, which was a part of the Royal Nevada. And then he gave, Mo Dalitz gave everyone the land to create the Guardian Angel Cathedral. So those different ties,
wow,
that's what brings all of those businessmen, et cetera, together in those different relationships.
I think that's one of the also great stories about inspiration of how to be successful, is making those connections throughout a career. And I think the most successful architects can do that, to make those connections. And if you're making those connections, you're making an impact with people, a positive impact. So that's a great stories, Carmen. Thank you for that. I want to maybe touch upon, like, why are we talking about Paul Williams? What's another avenue? Why is it important? And for us, it's about promoting greater inclusivity in our profession. I mean, as architecture has a problem right now in terms of diversity and of architects, and so I want to talk a little bit about that. So how can we promote diversity and inclusivity in architecture and design industry, and what steps can we take to make sure talented individuals, regardless of their background, have an equal opportunity to succeed? So, does anyone want to start with that?
Sure. I think the first thing is we need to make sure that we encourage diversity in education, starting from elementary school all the way up to grade school. I am chairman of the pipeline program for AIA Las Vegas, and my goal is to provide underprivileged and underrepresented kids experience in architecture. So I actually teach twice a month at West Prep Academy. And my goal is to have a pipeline in the next 10 years for students to attend the University in Architecture, whether it's UNLV or, university of their choice. But I think it's also had to do with, increasing the visibility of minority architects. How do we do that? How do we get them in the forefront? And how do we exhibit their work so that the kids can see that, hey, there is someone in a non-traditional role that looks like me. So I think we need to make sure that we have the visibility as well as the diversity in education.
Great. It sounds like there's for you, Mel, I like you acknowledge it's a long game, right?
It is.
It is a 10-year plan. It's not something that can flip a switch and then all of a sudden we're a diverse profession, right? It has to start with education. It's a long-term plan, and I'm glad to hear that you're out there making connections,
Absolutely,
making that happen. Thank you, Mel. Gail or Carmen, do either one of you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I can just add too that I think it's important that we're doing this focus on Paul Revere Williams. And I thank you for this effort, because it's important for young people to know that there were architects over 100 years ago that look like them, that we didn't just arrive on the scene, that we're looking multiple generations of African Americans and other people of color who have been in this profession. So they shouldn't feel that they're just starting from scratch, that they're the trailblazers. The trail has already been blazed, in so to speak. Yeah. We're passing the baton. We're passing the baton, and let them know, because I've talked to so many students that had never heard of Paul Revere Williams. He was left out of the historical narrative of the history of architecture. And so anything we can do to tell people there was this man, and you've seen his buildings, he existed, and he did this body of work, and we should aspire to that. And then younger folks can be those role models, just like he was a role model to my father, and then my generation came along, and then now Mel's generation. So it's like you say, it's a long game. Yeah, it's a long game. But we're behind. Less than 2% of licensed architects in the United States are African American. So we have not kept up. So the more that all of us can do, and it's not just for African Americans, but everybody, especially other architects in the profession, whatever you can do to hire young people, give them opportunities, an internship, whatever, it's very important.
Yeah, thank you. And you're absolutely right, Gail. Paul Williams was relatively absent from history books in architecture school. And you think about it, it's 2023, and he started his own business exactly 100 years ago, right? 1923. Wow. Carmen, would you have anything to add?
Just continuing on with these wonderful discussions and inviting kids, the K through 8th grade students, before they have that mind, they're open, and just continuing to reach out to that K through 8th grade group, so that when they get into the high school curriculum, they'll know what to focus on, and they'll know that architecture is an opportunity that they could pursue.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking the younger age is actually important. And I visited my family in Chicago last week, and I was talking to my stepmom, and she remembers me going out there when I was a kid. And I don't remember this, but she told me, is like, you are always interested in the high rises or how the building stood up. And it made me think, is like, those experiences, connecting youth to experiences, different experiences, are things that can inspire and get people to open up and to have opportunities to engage in their passions. So I think that's really great to hear. I think the youth is younger the better almost. So thank you, Carmen. So check in to see if we have questions. We do not. So I think before we dive into one of our last questions, Carmen, I want to open up back to you, and then maybe explain the exhibition that's ongoing. What offerings can you explain about that, and where can people go see this, or how can they connect with you?
Okay, well, the exhibition is called Jonna Ireland on the Architectural Legacy of Paul Revere Williams in Nevada. And it's a statewide exhibition that is organized by the Nevada Museum of Art. And originally it was just going to be designed just for a 2-month period in Reno in one of the smaller galleries. But my CEO, Mr. David Walker, got really excited about it and wanted to align it with as a statewide initiative and extend it to Southern Nevada. So because of the executive team, their generosity, we were able to actually host it here at the Nevada State Museum, which is located near the Springs Preserve. And what you'll see if you go to that exhibition, you will see 10 of Paul Revere Williams' works that are throughout the state of Nevada that are still existing. And you will also learn about those facilities that are no longer with us. And it's actually photographed by Jonna Ireland, who is a contemporary photographer and educator. And she is intentionally places the photographs in black and white so that your eye is not distracted from the color. Instead, you'll focus, as Gail stated earlier, on his details and designs and some of the iconic curves that you'll see throughout a lot of his designs. As we stated, he's designed over 3,000 different structures, and it's just such a pleasure to me to be able to know that right here in the state of Nevada, we have things that we can actually reflect on, visit, take our friends to, opportunities that are outside of the wonderful strip that we all love.
That's fantastic. Are the examples of Nevada, or are they from all over?
Just in Nevada, Northern Nevada, Central Nevada, Dyer, and Southern Nevada.
Okay, great.
And the exhibition is open until May 29th.
Okay. Carmen, we're going to get your information about the exhibition, and then our audience, when there will be a recording, will go out as a conclusion. We'll send that with it. So be on the lookout for that information. If you haven't seen it yet, please take the opportunity while it's still there. So, we do have a couple of questions that just came in. I think you've already answered it. The length of the exhibition will be available to the date you said, May 21st, Carmen?
May 29th. And 29th. If any groups that would like to come and take advantage of a curatorial tour, I will meet you there, and I'm more than happy to explore that with you.
Fantastic. All right, we have one more question, unless we get another audience question. So I'd like each of you to give one final piece of advice based on the life of career of Paul Revere Williams. It could be something you've already mentioned, or something you just want to really hammer home, like that you feel that's a lasting impression. Mel, let's go with you first. You're on mute unless you're.
Sorry about that. I should know that by now, right?
Yes.
For me, it's believing in yourself. I think that's the most critical thing, because you tend to be your own worst enemy. There are a lot of times when you're out there and you have to take a no, and you get really discouraged. So what I tell all of my students is I'm a superhero, and every superhero needs a theme song. And my theme song is Lovely Day by Bill Withers, because it makes me feel good, because we all have an armor on, it get dings up during the day. You come home, you take it off, and you have to get ready for that next day. So to me, it's about believing in yourself, understanding that you have to have patience. And one of the things that we did mention, it's a long game.
Mhm.
You have to be patient as an architect. And also you have to cultivate adaptability, because you have to be to adapt on certain situations, and be able to understand that you have skills. I mean, you're good at what you do,
Mhm.
and just believe in yourself. So that's what I would leave for my young architectural inspiring students.
That's fantastic. No, I want to be there because that's really inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gail, how about yourself?
Happy day. Yeah, I'm just gonna continue on that vein. I love it. My advice would be, don't give up.
Mm,
You know, Paul Williams faced a lot of rejection after rejection, just getting to be able to work as an architect. He got a lot of rejection. Every architect will face that. And don't be discouraged. Don't give up. Just persevere. Do not give up.
Thank
And
you.
you will be successful.
Yeah, great. That's great. Carmen, how about yourself?
Mine would be to just do your best. Utilize
Mm,
every single thing that you can just grab onto in order to just be your best. And as Dave stated, just remain undeterred and just focus on that goal, because we are, as you stated, he started his career 100 years and we are still inspired by him.
Great. This is a great answer. Is better than I could have expected. So thank you all three of you for being with us today. And I know your time's our most precious commodity. So I really appreciate the time you spent with us and helping us honor Paul Revere Williams. So thank you for your time. Brittany, you want to close us out?
Sure. Yes. Thank you guys so much. And thank you everyone for spending your afternoon with us and learning about Paul Revere Williams' legacy. As Jason's mentioned, it will be recorded, and so this link will be available. We can forward it to colleagues, use it to as a reference to check back on if you need. Yes, and we hope to see you all back at our upcoming Fireside chat. So everybody have a great evening.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so
Bye, guys.
much.
Yeah. Take care.